I'm James. We're in the Net News Ledger studio. I'm here with Jim Morrow, who's running in the Northwood ward. Jim, you've sharing with me a little earlier when we were talking, you've succeeded in one of the goals of your campaign.
Well, we wanted to canvass in every street crescent in the ward, and we were able to do that. We finished that last night, and we're quite pleased about that. It's been a long 7 weeks, and we were able to do it, and we're quite happy about it.
Northwood's one of the interesting wards in Thunder Bay. I think if you said middle class neighborhoods, that's Northwood. It's sort of the meat in Thunder Bay's sandwich in terms of residents and what's there, with a real diversity of people. What have you found in the ward are the issues concerning people?
Well, certainly, James, infrastructure is a major issue. It's been a long time where insufficient work has been done on it. There's lots of people that still have their homes that are at risk, people who are threatened to be cut off of house insurance. Taxes are an issue there, but certainly over the last 4 or 5 weeks, throughout the campaign, but seriously the last month to 5 weeks, crime has been front and center with people door after door. There are people who are locking themselves in at 7 o'clock at night. They are not leaving. A young man related a story to me the other day where he was attacked, stomped, kicked, broken ribs, still recovering after 5 months, does not know who his attackers are. Nobody will ever be arrested, and he was robbed. It is story after story about people not wanting to leave their homes, and that led me to do a little bit more work with regard to what's going on in Northwood, and found out some other disturbing issues.
So what have you found out? What can you share with us?
The Ontario government started a Best Start program. It is designed to look at young kids from going from kindergarten to grade 1. And they want to identify those kids that are at risk of maybe having learning disabilities, maybe not being as healthy as the kids should be, facing poverty challenges that may cause them difficulties to succeed in school. And they did a survey in 2006, and then they just did another recent one in 2012 and compared the results. And the results for Northwood are deeply disturbing. What was found is that Northwood had the second highest increase in kids that are at risk in the whole entire city. And in total, Northwood is leading in all the worst categories with regard to the most at-risk kids who are unlikely to succeed or have a less chance to succeed than other kids should have. So it could be learning disabilities. Their health could be inferior to others. Poverty could be a substantial challenge for them. They could have learning disabilities. Their social skills may not be as developed as otherwise should be. And what you tend to find with those kinds of results is that those children have a far less chance to succeed as they grow. Everybody knows that the more successful kids are at an earlier age, the more likely that they're going to be successful in adult life. This is a long-term strategy in terms of trying to deal with homelessness and poverty and crime. And with crime being such an important issue in the ward, to also have the most at-risk kids in the city in the ward, Northwood is facing some tremendous challenges that have not been adequately dealt with, I would argue, over the last decade. And I think we need new people and new ways to deal with these challenges if we're going to be successful at turning the ward around and turning the city around for some of these issues.
Well, a lot of things in Thunder Bay, it's easy to kind of platitude them a little bit or to say, oh, well, we're working on it. And we've got a lot of programs in place. Do you think the programs are working fast enough to solve the problems?
James, back in 1997, when I was the community police officer there, Rick Stray, who was the principal at Sherbrooke School, and I started a breakfast program. Yeah. So, 17 years ago, we identified that children showing up to school hungry is going to make it impacted the behavior in the school, impacted their ability to succeed. So we started this program, and Sherbrooke is still operating a breakfast program today. But those kinds of strategies tend to take 5, 10, 15 years down the road to see whether or not you're going to be successful. When you're talking specifically about crime, what needs to happen I would argue, citywide, is we need to get a sense of safety back into the community. The only way that can happen, the only way, is we need to put more officers on the street We need to flatten out our organizational structure and make people feel safe because there are police officers that they see drive by, that they see on bikes, that they see in their area, and it'll make people feel safe to go back out. When you have a situation, as currently exists in Northwood, where people are not willing to go outside out of fear, crime is just going to flourish and be a more greater challenge than it already is.
Yeah, if nobody's outside, the only people outside are the criminals.
That's true, and they are eyes and ears for the police, the people that are walking in the trails. But it's common sense that there's going to be far less crime when there's people out in the street being active, enjoying our city. It's a terrible tragedy that a community like Northwood, one I've been a part of for 46 years, is developing into this fearful, hiding behind gates. I met a friend of mine today who his wife just asked him to get bars for their basement windows for the first time in 32 years. This is what is happening in our community, and talking about it is not going to solve the problem today in terms of making people feel safe again.
Well, here in the downtown Fort William area, we have police officers walking a beat during the day, and they stop in at the shops and they talk to the merchants, they talk to the business people, and they talk to the people on the streets, and that's creating that sense of community. So you'd say something, that way with Northwood, perhaps on a more regular basis?
It's different. One of the differences between a downtown core, which may be a 4, 6, or 8 square block, where people on foot can operate effectively, it's much more difficult to transition that program out into a community the size of Northwood. And Northwood's not even one of the larger geographical wards.
Yeah.
So you need to put officers out on the street in enough numbers that one officer may be able to get out and meet some of the businesses, another officer may be out on patrol, where they're visible, where people see them in cars, and whether they're out on bikes in the area or however they're going to be deployed. But the answer is we need to deploy more. We need to get officers out of the station and out of some of these units that exist. There's lots of people, I suppose, that have lots of opinions on what these solutions are going to be. But 10 years ago, I was talking about violence in our community and that there's not enough officers on the street. And it was being denied as a problem. Our leaders were saying that this doesn't exist. And here we are a decade later, still talking about the same problems and looking for solutions. What I'm finding is that people want to blame others, whether it be other levels of government or societal problems, for their inability to adequately deal with the challenges that we're facing. We have a problem in Thunder Bay, and until we have people in the position that are willing to do the work, it's probably not going to change.
So transitioning a little bit, we're getting into the Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday is voting day. So if you haven't voted, get yourself ready for Monday. What are you planning for Monday?
Monday is going to be, I think, a relaxing day. I think I'm going to go pick up my mother and take her out for lunch and just enjoy the day with her and await the results like everybody else is going to be. I don't think Monday is going to be canvassing or anything like that. I think the voters, by and large, will have made up their minds by then, and we'll just wait to see what happens.
Well, I'm James, Net News Ledger. We're in the newsroom with Jim Morrow, who's running in Northwood, been campaigning hard and facing 3 other candidates in a very busy ward that we'll be watching closely on Monday night. Thank you.
Thank you, James. It's been a pleasure.